Now, there's some speculation about whether I'm about to embark on a political endeavor in which I've been previously unsuccessful. Let me state unequivocally that I have no intention of running for U.S. Senator in Massachusetts. That's seriously, for our party and for the nation, 2016 is not going to be about the Obama years. It's going to be about the post-Obama era.
And there are those who have already come out and declared the only person who could properly run America from 2016 out is someone already elected to office. Of course, there are others who would counter there's nothing worse than a career politician, and Americans need somebody who understands business this time around and is not a career politico. Let the discourse continue. We focus on a long shot for the presidency, someone who will be paying close attention to the President's State of the Union address and considering what might be a better path for this country. Pleasure to welcome into Midpoint, at one time considered the most powerful woman in American business when she led Hewlett-Packard. Named by Newsmax in 2013 as one of the 35 most influential women in the GOP, Carly Fiorina joins us this afternoon. Carly, thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure to be with you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I specifically want to ask you, though, as somebody who has run a major business in her time, looking at the President of the United States and the way that he deals with certain crises, could he make it in big business?
Well, in a word, no. Look, I think this president fails to anticipate problems. And I mean, we've just seen that over and over again. It really wasn't a surprise when Russia moved on Crimea. It wasn't a surprise when Russia moved into eastern Ukraine. It wasn't a surprise when ISIS moved in Syria and Iraq, even though he called them a JV team. I mean, he's always caught flat-footed. And one of the most important things is for an executive, whether they're in business or government or anywhere else, is to anticipate problems and to act before they become huge problems. And on this score, as on others, President Obama has failed.
Is he inept or just naive?
You know, I think he is grossly inexperienced, and that makes him naive. He is a man of words. He has spent most of his life with words, speaking. And I think he seems to fail to understand that talking and acting are two different things. He seems to think that when he gives a speech, he has acted. He hasn't. And words are only important if they signal intent to act. And that intent is then followed up with real action, the real production of results. He will apparently declare victory on the economy tonight, but of course, whatever life there is in the economy is not due to his policies, it's in spite of his policies.
There is no doubt that he is going to ask and discuss a massive tax hike. He wants to go after people who make a lot of money and says that they deserve to pay more to help the middle class. What do you think?
Well, you know, he's always been interested in redistributing wealth rather than growing the economy. This isn't a new theme for him. He's tried this over and over and over. I think what's surprising about it is not that he believes in taxing the wealthy and redistributing wealth as opposed to growing the economy and helping more people succeed and lifting up the middle class. I think what's surprising is that he is doubling down on what has already been a failed strategy in the face of a House and a Senate that are GOP controlled. So if he thinks this is an opening gambit towards finding common ground for tax reform, I think it's clearly not. That's what's surprising and disappointing.
I got a minute left before we take a break, come back and talk more, but let me ask you this. With regard to all this, there's a thinking process that the president is pushing all this forward because he wants to shove the Republicans back in a corner and he wants to make them out to be the bad guys. Now the big thing is to make sure that the Republicans are smart enough not to take the bait. Do you think they're smart enough to take that tack?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I certainly hope that, as I have said on other occasions, that the Republican-controlled House and Senate soberly and systematically pass legislation that helps Americans. And if it winds up on the president's desk and he vetoes it, then we should point out who it is who's standing in the way of middle-class prosperity or a growing economy or any other number of things. We should not allow the president to determine the terms of the debate because we know that the only terms of the debate that he likes are typical liberal redistribution, class warfare, politics as opposed to really working to find common ground and for the good of the American people.
All right, hold tight a couple of minutes here. Back and more with Carly Fiorina. We turn toward that chance of taking on the task of running America and what makes her somebody voters should choose if indeed she decides to run. And at 34 minutes after the hour, what choices America and the world? Let us welcome back to Midpoint former California Senate candidate and perhaps one day soon a choice for the 2016 presidency. Carly Fiorina joins us on Midpoint. All right, Carly, I'm going to ask you flat out. I'm a voter. You're talking to me. Why should I vote for you over Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, or anybody else?
Well, first of all, I'm not a candidate yet, although I am seriously considering becoming one. But
Okay.
I think our country is losing a sense of limitless possibility that has always defined us. There are too many people in this country who feel their future or their children's future is constrained. We have great potential in this nation, but it is being crushed. I think ours was intended to be a citizen government. The professional politician is a relatively modern invention. For most of our nation's history, people moved out of private life into public service and back to private life. I know a little something about what it takes to unlock potential, what it takes to grow an economy. I know that American leadership is missing in the world and that the world is a more dangerous and tragic place without American leadership. And so if I choose to do this, I will talk to the American people about unlocking the potential of every American, of making sure that every American has a chance to use their God-given gifts, and of the importance of American leadership in the world that desperately needs it.
All right, you're doing wonderfully on the political side of things. However, it is not my job to allow politicians to get past every now and then. So I'm going to ask you, you've already talked about unlocking that potential. Tell us, give us an example of what you mean by that and what you would then do if you had the opportunity to make a real difference, specifically.
So I happen to serve today as the chairman of an organization called Opportunity International. We are the largest microfinance organization in the world. We have lent $6 billion, starting at $150 at a time. We take a chance on people who are desperately poor and destitute. We take a chance on them by believing in them, by extending to them a line of credit, by providing them with tools and training and support. And I have seen people in desperate circumstances, when someone takes a chance on them, find their God-given gifts and fulfill their potential and create a better life for themselves and their families. I know from experience that everyone has the desire to live a life of dignity and purpose and meaning. We have to give every single American a chance to do that, and today we are not.
All right, let me ask what it says about the Republican Party, because you are the only woman so far considering to run on the GOP side. There are many people who would say, wait a minute, that says something about the Republicans, that they're not friendly for women. You've heard all these arguments, that old war on women, that we have to go back to that again. What does that say that you're the only woman out there who is considering at this point to run?
Well, any party has to be as diverse as the nation it hopes to represent. And of course, women are 53% of voters. Women are half this nation. The war on women is a ridiculous charge launched by Democrats who marginalize women in a completely insulting way. Democrats would want women to believe that the only issue we care about is what they call reproductive rights. And in truth, we know that every issue is a woman's issue, that women care about the economy, they care about national security, they care about education, they care about immigration. And so if I do this, I will bring forward the principles that I think work best to unlock people's potential. That's why I'm a conservative, because I know from experience that our principles, our values, and our policies work best to lift people up, men and women.
So about the minute or so that I have left here, what is it going to take to make your decision if indeed you do run? What's your timetable?
Well, I don't have an exact timetable yet, but I think it's probably I will make a decision in the spring time frame, and it will really depend upon whether I believe I can build the right kind of team, the right kind of political support, have the right kind of financial resources to make a serious run. That time will come. And I must say I'm very encouraged by the support that I'm getting so far.
Do you think even if you don't deserve to run, or you don't decide to run, I'm sorry, that perhaps you should be involved simply because the GOP needs that strong executive, financial, female voice in there to push things forward and not just make it a bunch of guys?
Well, look, I think that our party is helped the more women who are engaged in the political process and the more non-politicians who are engaged in the political process. As I said at the outset, I think ours was intended to be a citizen government. I spent most of 2014 engaging women in the political process because, you know, women represent a lot of untapped potential as well in business and in politics.
Don't worry about it. I have somebody at home who says it's about time for a woman president. So maybe indeed that just might happen. Carly Fiorina, we thank you so much for joining us today. We will stay in touch, as a matter of fact. And don't worry, the questions get harder as they go along and you get closer to thinking about running for president.
Well, thank you so much, Ed, for having me. And thank your wife at home as well.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Carly. Take care. Let's stick with politics after the break. Let's welcome a state senator who has a controversial idea for the teaching of religion in state schools. And at 51 after the hour, hear what happens when a great